Bible Tune Studio presents.
Imagine the man who commanded rain couldn't fight the drought in his own soul. Imagine the prophet who stood boldly against 450 mystics, fleeing in fear from a single letter. The most dangerous battle a spiritual warrior faces isn't on the battlefield. It's the silence after victory. This is the accusation of Elijah, a man who conquered fire but nearly lost himself in the quiet. The greatest battles don't always look like victories. Sometimes they look like a man face down in the dirt, begging for death. The summit of Mount Carmel was no longer a place of worship. It was a crime scene of divine intervention. The air was thick with the smell of ozone, singed hair, and the metallic tang of blood. The fire of Yahweh had not just fallen, it had devoured. It had licked up the water, the stones, and the dust. The false prophets of Baal, the architects of Israel's spiritual suicide, lay dead in the Kishon Valley, their influence washed away by the sudden, violent torrent of rain. This is the story of Elijah, the battle of faith and the fall of the false prophets. Elijah, the Tishbite, the hairy man of Gilead, stood amidst the storm. The drought was over. 3.5 years of brown skies and cracked earth had ended in a deluge. King Ahab, the weak-willed monarch who had sold his nation's soul, was racing his chariot back to the winter palace in Jezreel, and Elijah was running. The hand of the Lord was upon him, a supernatural surge of energy that propelled him past the king's horses, past the royal guard, running miles through the mud with the manic joy of total vindication. He ran with the wind at his back. He ran with the knowledge that he was right. He thought the war was over. He thought the queen would bow. He thought the idols would topple. He was about to learn a brutal lesson in spiritual warfare. The enemy doesn't surrender just because you won a round. This is the story of a man who stood tall before armies, but crumbled before his own shadow. This is the story of he defeated fire from heaven, but fear nearly won. The scene shifts from the chaotic, rain-lashed roads to the unnerving stillness of the palace in Jezreel. The contrast was absolute. While the world outside was being baptized in water and blood, the interior of the queen's chambers was scented with myrrh and quiet menace. Queen Jezebel sat before her mirror. She was not merely a wife. She was the daughter of Ethbaal, the high priest of the Sidonians. She was a missionary of darkness. She heard the commotion in the courtyard, the shouting of the guards, the rattling of chariot wheels. Ahab burst into the room, soaking wet, his royal robes heavy with mud, his eyes wide, with a mixture of terror and awe. He collapsed onto a divan, gasping for breath. Jezebel did not turn. She continued to apply the coal to her eyes, her hand steady.
You return alone? Where are my prophets? Where are the 450 who eat at my table?
Ahab trembled. He had seen the fire. He had seen the impossible.
They are dead. All of them. Elijah, he called down fire. The sky opened. The stones burned. Jezebel, the stones burned. And then he took them to the brook, and the river ran red.
For the first time, the brush in Jezebel's hand paused. The silence in the room was heavier than the stone walls. She turned slowly. Her face was not a mask of grief. It was a mask of cold, calculating fury. She did not weep for her priests. To her, they were merely tools, that had broken, but the insult, the challenge to her authority. That was unforgivable. She did not scream. She did not throw things. She stood up, her silhouette sharp against the flickering torchlight. She called for a scribe. Her voice was low, devoid of any human warmth.
Write this, and take it to the Tishbite.
She dictated the message. It was not a military strategy. It was psychological warfare. She knew Elijah. She knew that men of great passion are often men of great fragility. She didn't send an army to capture him. She sent a fear to break him.
So may the gods do to me, and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by this time tomorrow.
The messenger bowed and vanished into the storm. Elijah was likely at the city gates, or resting in a guest chamber, the adrenaline of the run beginning to fade into the dull ache of exhaustion. He was wringing the water from his mantle, perhaps waiting for the summons to the palace to accept their surrender. Instead, the messenger arrived. He didn't carry a sword. He carried words. He delivered the queen's vow. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. Elijah, the man who had just mocked an entire religion, looked at the messenger and felt the blood drain from his face. The logic of faith collapsed. Why didn't God kill her? Why is she still in power? I did everything right, and death is still coming. The text says, he saw that. He saw the situation through the lens of trauma, not truth. And he arose and ran for his life. He didn't run to God. He didn't run to the altar. He ran to the wilderness. He fled south, crossing the border of Judah, bypassing Jerusalem, pushing all the way to Beersheba. It was a retreat of shame. At Beersheba, the edge of civilization, he turned to his servant, the young man who had poured water on his hands, who had watched the cloud rise from the sea.
Stay here.
But Master, the wilderness.
Stay here. I go alone.
He left his servant behind. This is the first sign of the darkness taking hold. Isolation. He cut ties with his community. He walked a day's journey into the Negev desert, a landscape of blinding sun and scrubbing brush, a place where life goes to die. The sun beat down on his head. The victory of Carmel felt like a dream from another life. His legs gave out. He crawled under the shade of a broom tree, a scrubby, insufficient shelter. The heat radiated off the ground in waves. Elijah rolled onto his back, staring up at the relentless blue sky. He was dehydrated. He was physically shattered, but the spiritual agony was worse. He felt like a fraud.
It is enough.
His voice cracked, dry and brittle.
Now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my fathers.
The confession of a broken heart. I am no better than my fathers. He had spent his life trying to be different, trying to be the reformer, the exception. He thought he was the turning point for Israel. Now, he felt like just another statistic in a long history of failure. He closed his eyes, hoping his heart would stop beating. He wanted the peace of oblivion. He fell into a deep, narcotic sleep, the sleep of sorrow. But he was not alone. The air shimmered. A hand touched his shoulder, not a rough shake, but a gentle pressure. Elijah flinched, opening his eyes, expecting the soldiers of Jezebel. Instead, he saw an angel, and he smelled bread. There, on hot stones, was a cake of bread baked over coals and a jar of water. The irony was profound. In the middle of a death wish, God served him breakfast. The angel didn't give him a theology lecture. He didn't rebuke him for his lack of faith. He ministered to the physical body first.
Arise and eat.
Elijah ate sluggishly, drank the water, and immediately fell back asleep. The depression was a heavy blanket. The angel came a second time. The persistence of grace.
Arise and eat, for the journey is too great for you.
The journey. God was not done with him. Elijah ate, and the food was not normal sustenance. It was divine fuel. He stood up. The strength returned to his limbs. A cold fire in his bones. He turned his back on Israel and began to walk. He walked for 40 days and 40 nights. This was not a hike. It was a pilgrimage of pain. He walked through the Zin desert. He walked through the Arabah. He walked until the landscape turned into the jagged, red granite of the Sinai Peninsula. He was going back to the source, back to Horeb, back to where Moses saw the burning bush, back to where the law was given. He found a cave, a dark slash in the side of the holy mountain. He crawled inside, wrapping the darkness around him like a shawl. He sat there, stewing in his bitterness, justifying his flight. And then, the word of the Lord came to him. It wasn't a thought, it was a presence.
What are you doing here, Elijah?
The question echoed off the damp walls. It was an invitation to confess, to repent, to cry. He stood up, his voice echoing in the cave, filled with self-righteous indignation.
I have been zealous for the Lord, but Israel has forsaken you, destroyed your altars, killed your prophets, and now they seek my life.
He recited his resume of suffering. I am the only one. It was a lie, of course. Obadiah had hidden 100 prophets. But pain makes us blind. Pain makes us the center of the universe. God did not argue with his statistics. He simply gave a command.
Go out and stand on the mount before the Lord.
Elijah stepped to the mouth of the cave. The air grew heavy. The static electricity raised the hair on his arms. And behold, the Lord passed by. First came the wind. It was not a breeze. It was a violent atmospheric tearing. It hit the mountain with the force of a bomb. Rocks, massive boulders, weighing tons, were shattered into shrapnel. The sound was deafening, a roar that shook Elijah's teeth. He shielded his eyes, hoping God was in the wind, but he wasn't. Then came the earthquake, shaking the mountain, terrifying, but God wasn't there either. After the earthquake, a fire, a roaring blaze, consuming everything in its path. But still, God was not in the fire. Elijah stood trembling, disappointed. He was looking for a God of war. Then came silence, a whisper, louder than the wind and earthquake. The Creator leaned in close. Elijah knew this sound. It took more courage than facing 800 prophets. He pulled his mantle over his face and stepped outside.
What are you doing here, Elijah?
Elijah repeated his despair. God didn't pamper him. He gave him a job, a future.
Anoint Hazael as king over Syria, Jehu over Israel, and Elisha as your prophet.
God showed him that he wasn't alone. 7,000 in Israel had not bowed to Baal. The burden lifted. Elijah wasn't the Messiah, just a man, and he wasn't alone. Elijah walked down the mountain. Jezebel was still in power, and danger remained. But he had heard the whisper. Faith isn't about dramatic victories. It's built in the quiet, in the courage to keep going when the world feels against you. The greatest battles are often within. And in those moments, God's presence carries us farther than fire or force ever could. If Elijah's journey speaks to your heart, help us share this message with the world. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support helps Bible Tunes Studio continue bringing God's Word to life through meaningful, inspiring animations that touch hearts.